All right, another week down. These weeks I feel like are flying by way too fast. We're looking at the Minnesota State Fair this next week. For anyone that's going to the fair, swing out to the corner of Cooper and Lee up by Machinery Hill. We'll have a big booth for Clam Outdoors. We'll have some Blackfish gear on display. We'll get to show you some of the new ice fishing products for the upcoming year. Quick set screen shelters, polar trailers, giant booth on the corner of Cooper and Lee. I plan to be there opening day this upcoming Thursday. We'll be setting up on Tuesday and Wednesday. Stop by, say hi, talk fishing, get some good food. I think everyone watching knows the drill on how the Minnesota State Fair works. This last week, we caught fish all different kinds of ways. Last time I came at you, we were coming back, finishing up our trip to the cabin in western Wisconsin. We gave you a report that was kind of multifaceted. Talked about the metro, talked about Wisconsin, yada, yada, yada. This week, I told you, as promised, we went up to Gull Lake for a couple days, chased a bunch of fish around the Twin Cities metro area, had a really good bite on the Chisago area. Yesterday, Saturday morning, caught some big fish. It was good. Looks like there was a youth tournament going on out there. Hopefully those boys and girls did well. Got there early in the morning, 6 something. There was already 25, 30 trucks and trailers in the lot. Very abnormal for that lake on a Saturday, even on a Saturday, but it looked like these kids were out there cracking them, having a good time. We cut our fish a bunch of different ways. You know, it was a little different up on Gull, and I say that because it felt like fall. We were storm skinned up, pants. It was 46 degrees when we started fishing both days. So it was cold. It definitely did not feel like the middle of August. So that changed some things. It dropped the water temps into the mid to low 70s. So fish definitely didn't make massive movements. They just changed maybe how they're feeding, their activity levels. We really had to slow down our approach. We pitched a lot of jigs, fished pretty slow all morning, through heavier rattling AT jigs, Grassmaster jigs, tungsten weights, and your favorite plastic type thing, pitching heavy cover, main lake structure. Offshore continues to be a key term. You saw me mention that again this week a couple different times because it's the truth. A lot of good bites seem to be offshore. And the tough thing about it in those conditions is it was blowing 15 to 20 and it was cold. So offshore meant you had to be relatively uncomfortable, you know, being offshore, dealing with the wind, dealing with the colder conditions. What I learned is we just upsize what we're fishing. 3/8 ounce is my go-to rattling AT jig. We were fishing 3/4, so we were fishing a heavier profile or a heavier weighted jig. Profile's about the same, I take that back. Heavier weighted jig so that we could pitch it to the right piece of structure, to the right spot, make sure we made contact with the bottom, make sure it sat where we wanted it to be. So I actually increased the size of my rattling AT jig. I still fish my favorite colors like a green pumpkin, Texas craw. Jack caught him really good on a blue and black. Jack actually, my 15-year-old, whooped my butt on bigger size fish. He was fishing, well, here's his rod right here. I'm looking right at it. This is what he caught all his fish on. Pretty big profile, beaver type bait, heavier blue and black 3/4 ounce rattling AT jig. He mopped me up on that for size. If it was a tournament, he would have whooped me. If it was a numbers game, I would have whooped him. It happens. So Champions Tour, I would have had Jack beat. Normal Derby, 5 fish, Jack would have ate my lunch. It's okay, it's all right. So that was working well, increasing our size, flipping, making the right cast, slowing down, letting that thing soak, picking it up, letting it fall back down, reeling up, flipping again to another spot. So we did a lot of flipping and punching in heavy main lake cover. That seemed to hold true as we came back to the Twin Cities, whether it was Minnetonka, Chisago chain. That flipping bite, fishing heavier cover, slowing down, got our bigger bites for sure. Now, I caught some quality fish on moving baits. I caught a good 4 1/4 pound fish on a chatterbait covering water. But what I noticed on the chatterbait right away is when I cast 1, 2, and then just a steady retrieve. It wasn't just covering water. It was let it soak, and then I just wanted to feel that purr. So I guess in retrospect, I even fish the chatterbait slower, more methodically than I would typically. So definitely a theme going on there, slowing down, paying attention to every cast. That was good. Now, we did get one cool pattern to work. I know I said my rods are sitting in the boat. I know Jack rigged one up. We had a really fun drop TG minnow bait bite, if I can get this out of this conglomerated mess. This is basically what it was, is we took a drop TG. This fluke is beat to death, but we took a drop TG jig. This is a 1/8 ounce. We did fish some larger ones, some quarter stuff, and you take your fluke. This just happens to be a white Zoom fluke. This one here is beat up. He caught a pile of fish on it, as you can tell. And we were just pitching that out there. That was just mimicking a lot of the bait fish these fish are feeding on, something fish want to eat, whatever. And we were pitching that along the deep weed line. I did really, really well on gull with that. I had a really good school wired in, 16 to 20 feet of water, boat right on the weed line. As I scanned my active target, weeds, sparse, nothing. I casted right there on that line, pitch it as far as I could, let it pull line, let it sink all the way to the bottom, and then just slowly hop it back to the boat. We caught a bunch of fish doing that. I caught a bunch of fish on Chisago doing that. So really not overthinking it. Get your favorite jig head. I like that drop TG. It's tungsten. I like how it fishes. It fishes heavy. It shows up good on my sonar. I get the right profile for the weight comparison. And then I put on my favorite minnow bait. There's a variety of them. That fluke really caught them. You can definitely throw a paddle tail bait like a sassy shad from Mr. Twister. You can throw a Largo shad. You can do a number of things in the back end of that. That was an easy way to fish, especially with the windy conditions. A little heavier jig head, spinning rod, 15-pound braid, 8-pound fluorocarbon leader. It didn't matter. I could be out there spot locked in 20-mile-an-hour winds, find that right cast, peel the line, slow down, let it go down to where I needed it to be, and work it back. You can absolutely fish in these type of conditions. You don't need to get away from the wind. I'll tell you what, our best bites by far the last 4 or 5 days in these extremely windy conditions. I shouldn't say extremely windy conditions, but pretty windy conditions. 15 to 25, which I think is blowing pretty good, whitecaps. You just need to be on the right spot. You need to slow down, increase your weight, and pay attention to what you're doing, and you want to continue to make contact with the bottom. That's the big thing. In these windier conditions, that bait's going to want to fall a lot slower. Line's going to get picked up by the wind. You want to pitch, pull your line, increase your weight, let that thing go right down to the bottom, give it an extra couple seconds. If you think you're already down there, engage your retrieve, and you'll catch more fish. So super fun way to be out there catching fish. I plan this week to be the same. I am not going to be hammering down hard most of the week. Like I said, I got to be at the state fair. I will be back on the water next weekend a bunch, a little bit during the week, but I will be at the fair hanging out. Love to see people that are watching this come by the booth on Thursday, opening day. I'll be there with Jack. Jack will be there with me, hanging out, talking fishing. So water temps, mid to upper 70s, bite, consistent, slow down, increase your weight if you have to. The wind right now is pretty lax today. It was decent, but these are just some simple tips as we move to mid-summer. Offshore continues to be key. I understand people like to beat the bank. There's fish on the bank, but your better bite, your consistent bite, your bigger bite, your more numbers of bite is going to be offshore. Get good at it, learn your electronics, pay attention to the nuances, have fun, make casts, be safe. Good luck out there, and stay hydrated. It's warm, even though it's windy. It's 90 degrees out. We have excessive heat warnings this week. It doesn't mean you're not having implications on your body. So make sure you wear Blackfish gear or some good sun shirts, bring lots of water, stay hydrated, and pick your windows if you can. Early morning, later in the evening. If you're gonna fish middle of the day, just be safe. Get out there, have some fun, catch some fish for me. See you next week.